Grandma's cooking was always delicious, those familiar tastes of childhood that no one else could quite replicate. She didn't need modern technology or fancy recipes. She relied only on small tricks gathered from a lifetime in the kitchen. Today, let's go back to that old kitchen to discover 30 brilliant secrets that make food taste better. From adding secret seasonings to combining ingredients you might think were scraps, they all show a timeless creativity that would amaze even modern chefs. Let's find out. Add a little cold water to make scrambled eggs fluffier. Breakfast back then was usually very simple, but Grandma's scrambled eggs were always noticeably softer and fluffier. The secret lies in a small detail. Before frying, Grandma always added a little cold water to the beaten eggs. When the eggs meet the hot pan, the water quickly steams, creating tiny air pockets that help the eggs puff up slightly, making them light and airy instead of dense and dry. You only need about 1 tablespoon of cold water for every 2 eggs. Fry over low heat and stir gently, and the eggs will cook up soft, moist, and melt in your mouth. It's an old, rustic kitchen trick, but enough to turn the familiar scrambled eggs into a taste of memory that many still recall when they think about childhood mornings. Mix a spoonful of mayonnaise into cake batter. It might sound strange, even unbelievable at first, but mayonnaise is the secret to making sweet cake moist and surprisingly rich in Grandma's traditional kitchen. Mayonnaise is not just a sauce. It is a perfect combination of oil and eggs. These two components are crucial elements in baking. The oil in mayonnaise provides necessary moisture, preventing the cake from drying out after baking, while the generous amount of eggs enhances the structure and stability of the cake batter. This addition helps the cake crumb become smoother and chewier. The marvelous thing is that when mayonnaise is added to the batter, it blends perfectly and completely disappears during baking without affecting the final flavor of the cake. To use this trick, we just need to stir in 1 or 2 tablespoons of mayonnaise into the cake mixture before putting it in the oven. This tip is especially effective for chocolate cakes, making them much softer and smoother. Enjoying a cake with perfect moisture and soft texture, achieving bakery quality right from the familiar oven in your own kitchen is the wonderful thing this tip brings. Add cocoa powder to chili. When Grandma made her signature chili, the entire kitchen would be filled with warm, rich spice aromas. But few knew the secret ingredient she used to create that depth of flavor. It is a little unsweetened cocoa powder, a surprising addition that can enhance the chili by adding significant depth and richness. The cocoa's natural, subtle bitterness effectively balances the chili's heat, while also boosting the dish's overall flavor. The heat of the chili, the richness of the stewed meat, and the slight bitterness of the cocoa create a wonderful harmony, enriching the taste experience. To perform this trick, during the simmering stage of the chili, you just need to add 1 teaspoon of unsweetened cocoa powder and stir well to ensure the cocoa fully combines with the other ingredients. It is important to use unsweetened cocoa to prevent the dish from becoming sweet. The final result is that the chili will not taste like chocolate at all, but instead, it will have a savory, complex flavor that is extremely captivating, making this traditional dish richer than ever. Use bread crusts to soften hard cookies. In times of tight budgets or during the wet winter, nothing was wasted, not even cookies left out too long that had turned hard. Reviving hard cookies is an art Grandma passed down, using the natural moisture of fresh bread crusts. The natural humidity from the bread will slowly transfer to the hard cookies, helping to restore their original softness. We just need to place those cookies into an airtight container, then add a few pieces of fresh bread crust along with them. Close the container tightly so the moisture doesn't escape, and wait patiently. Grandma often advised letting them sit quietly overnight. By the next morning, you will find the cookies have absorbed enough necessary moisture and regained their chewy softness. Before enjoying them, remember to remove the pieces of bread that have completed their task. This trick is perfect for reviving leftover cookies, helping us make the most of the food we have, a valuable lesson in saving. What about you? Do you have any kitchen tricks from your childhood that you still use in your kitchen? Put the hype button and share your family secret in the comments below. Add carrots to burned soup. On busy days, it is entirely possible for a pot of soup you're cooking to suddenly taste slightly burnt due to distraction. A raw carrot is the unexpected savior that can rescue this heartfelt soup. To perform this salvage trick, we need to peel and halve a carrot, then drop it into the simmering pot of soup. You should simmer it for about 10 to 15 minutes, enough time for the carrot to absorb the burnt odor. After the time is up, we need to remove the carrot from the pot before serving the dish, and you might taste it again to adjust seasoning if necessary. Carrots are excellent natural absorbers. When peeled and dropped into the pot, the carrot will slowly draw out the unpleasant bitter burnt notes while simultaneously releasing a little bit of its natural subtle sweetness into the soup. This simple trick not only prevents your soup from going to waste, but also ensures it becomes a hearty, delicious meal with absolutely no trace of the scorched smell, leaving only the familiar, warm flavor. Soak potatoes in cold water before frying. To get perfectly golden, crispy French fries, up to Grandma's standards, the secret is not in the type of frying oil or the temperature, but in the most basic preparation step: cold water soaking. Soaking potatoes in cold water helps remove excess starch, which is the main reason why fries tend to stick together and cook unevenly. Excess starch on the potato surface is the enemy of crispiness, and soaking is the most effective way to fix this. The starch removal process helps the fries become crispier and drier when exposed to high temperatures. We simply cut the potatoes into the desired shape, then soak them in a bowl of cold water for 30 minutes or longer. This amount of time allows the cold water to draw all the starch out of the potato surface. After soaking, we need to make sure to drain them thoroughly and dry them completely before frying. This prevents oil splatter and ensures the oil temperature remains stable. The result of this meticulous preparation is French fry slices that are golden crisp with a soft interior. Melt butter into tomato sauce to create creaminess. In the old family kitchen, tomato sauce was a regular fixture at the dinner table, but Grandma's sauce was always smoother and more well-rounded in flavor. The secret lies in the final step: adding butter after the sauce is done cooking. Just one small spoonful of butter stirred into the gently simmering pot of sauce immediately changes everything. The butter melts, soothing the natural acidity of the tomatoes, pulling the flavors together and creating a smooth, lightly glossy, creamy layer of sauce. The fat in the butter prevents the sauce from being sharp or separating, instead helping it cling evenly to the noodles or soak deeply into every piece of meat. When served onto a plate, the sauce is neither watery nor bland, but has just the right thickness, tasting fragrant and warm. It's the kind of sauce that makes the whole family quiet for the first few seconds, listening only to the sound of the fork touching the plate. A little butter at the last minute, and the whole kitchen feels like going back to the time Grandma stood by the stove, cooking by experience and feel, without needing a recipe. Use club soda in pancake batter. Grandma's best pancakes were those that were light, fluffy, and didn't feel heavy. And the secret to that fluffiness was a simple carbonated drink: Soda Club. The principle of this trick relies on carbonation. The presence of carbon dioxide introduces tiny bubbles into the batter, similar to how steam makes scrambled eggs fluffy. These air pockets, when cooked, give the pancakes a soft, airy, and light texture. The result is that the pancakes puff up higher and are lighter compared to using ordinary milk or water. To do this, you just replace some of the liquid required in the recipe with Soda Club. When stirring the batter, do it very gently to maximally preserve the valuable air bubbles that have been introduced. Then, we cook the pancakes as usual on a hot griddle without needing any other major changes. Pancakes made with this trick have a soft and airy texture, perfect for a relaxed weekend breakfast, providing a completely different culinary experience compared to regular pancakes. Reuse pickle juice for blanched vegetables. Pickle juice is usually something thrown away, but few knew it was an excellent flavor enhancer for Grandma. The vinegar and spices accumulated in the pickle juice create a pungent sourness and rich depth of flavor that can bring boring vegetables to life. This layer of seasoning coats the outside of the vegetables, creating a burst of flavor upon tasting. To perform this trick, after quickly blanching familiar vegetables like carrots or green beans, you need to quickly toss them in a small amount of pickle juice. Then, let the vegetables sit quietly for about 15 to 20 minutes so they can fully absorb the flavor. Once evenly soaked, we just need to drain them and serve them as a side dish with a pungent, unusual taste. This trick not only helps reduce the waste of valuable pickling liquid, but also transforms simple vegetables into something special and extremely appealing, bringing a pleasant surprise even to the pickiest eaters. Mix miso and butter for roasted vegetables. In recent years, the complex umami flavor has become popular, but long ago, Grandma already knew how to combine miso paste with butter to create a subtle savory glaze that elevates ordinary roasted vegetables. We need to thoroughly mix 1 tablespoon of miso with softened butter. Then, use this miso butter mixture to toss evenly with your favorite vegetables before putting them in the oven. Grandma recommended roasting the vegetables at 400 degrees Fahrenheit until they are golden brown and perfectly tender. The deep, savory umami flavor of miso pairs perfectly with the rich, nutty quality of the butter, creating a flavorful and appealing outer crust when roasted. Miso adds earthy and salty notes, balancing the natural sweetness of the vegetables. This unique flavor combination works especially well with root vegetables like carrots, sweet potatoes, and parsnips, enriching their natural flavor significantly, transforming roasted vegetables into an attractive main dish. Replace water with coffee and cake mix. Chocolate and coffee are always a classic combination that cannot be denied, and if the goal is to enhance the flavor of chocolate cake to a new level of richness, then coffee is the perfect substitute for water. Instead of using plain water, Grandma often used brewed coffee to intensify the flavor of chocolate cake. The gentle roasted notes in the coffee effectively complement the cocoa, creating a deeper, more complex flavor without making the cake taste distinctly like coffee. Coffee simply acts as the perfect catalyst for chocolate flavor, highlighting the bitterness and richness of the cocoa. To do this, we just need to replace the water called for in the cake recipe with an equal amount of brewed coffee, noting that this coffee needs to be completely cooled to room temperature. Then, mix and bake the cake according to the usual instructions. This trick is perfect for mocha-inspired desserts or anyone who loves a bold, distinctive chocolate flavor, resulting in a cake with impressive depth of flavor that everyone will surely praise. Add a lemon slice to simmering rice. A pot of white rice that is light, fluffy, and not sticky is the foundation for any family meal. And Grandma had a classic trick to ensure every grain was perfect: adding a slice of lemon. Adding a slice of lemon to your rice pot not only enhances the flavor, but also significantly improves the rice's texture. This is a simple trick based on the chemical properties of lemon. The acidity in the lemon acts as a natural separating agent, helping keep the rice grains separate while cooking, thereby preventing unpleasant clumping. This gentle acid interferes with starch stickiness, ensuring the rice grains remain light. We just need to add a thin lemon slice to the water when starting to cook the rice, then remember to remove that lemon slice before serving the dish. This method also imparts a subtle citrus aroma, giving the rice a bit of fresh, rich flavor that is very appealing. This trick is especially useful for rice pilafs or any dish requiring separate, non-sticky rice grains. And it is also a touch of sophistication in the traditional cooking methods of the older generation. If you find these simple yet effective secrets priceless, please hit the like button on this video and subscribe to the channel. Your small action gives us more motivation to continue this journey of preserving and sharing timeless culinary memories. Use eggshells to clarify broth. In the kitchen of the past, to get a crystal clear pot of broth, Grandma didn't need complicated machinery or techniques. All she needed was something very familiar: eggshells. When the broth was cloudy, Grandma would wash the eggshells, crush them, and drop them into the gently simmering pot. The calcium in the eggshells would cling to the tiny particles, causing cloudiness, pulling them together. After simmering for a while, you just need to strain it again, and all the impurities go with the eggshells, leaving behind broth that is perfectly clear, light, and clean tasting. This trick was often used for dishes requiring delicacy, like noodle soup, clear soup, or consommé. Sprinkle salt on the cutting board before chopping herbs. Anyone who has chopped fresh herbs like parsley or basil knows the annoyance of them constantly sticking to the knife blade and the cutting board surface. To fix this sticky problem, Grandma taught a simple and effective trick: sprinkling salt on the cutting board before chopping. Sprinkling salt not only prevents the herbs from sticking to the board, but also helps enhance their flavor. Salt acts as a mild desiccant. It absorbs moisture on the surface of the board and the herbs, allowing the herbs to be chopped cleaner and more evenly, preventing them from slipping under the knife. More importantly, chopping herbs on a bed of salt also helps release their natural aromatic oils, making the herb flavor stronger, imparting a fresh taste to the dish. To apply this trick, we just need to sprinkle a pinch of salt onto your cutting board before starting to chop fresh herbs. This not only makes cleanup easier afterward, but also ensures the herb flavor is maximally enhanced, bringing freshness and vibrancy to the dish. Place celery stalks in the bread bag. Preserving bread for longer without using preservatives is always a challenge, especially for artisanal or homemade bread. Grandma passed down a natural and extremely clever trick using celery stalks. Celery stalks can help keep bread fresh longer thanks to their own natural moisture. This moisture is slowly released, creating a lightly humid environment inside the bag, preventing the bread from drying out and becoming hard. This moisture stability is the key to the bread's softness. To do this, we just need to place a few celery stalks inside the bread bag, but ensure they do not directly touch the bread to avoid making the bread wet or soggy. Then, seal the bread bag tightly and replace the celery every few days to maintain effectiveness. This natural trick helps maintain the softness of the bread without introducing any chemical preservatives. Wrap lettuce in a damp paper towel. Green vegetables are the foundation of a meal, and keeping lettuce crisp and preventing wilting is a daily challenge. Grandma taught that to keep lettuce fresh easily and effectively, we need to use a damp paper towel. This trick is based on the principle of maintaining ideal moisture around the vegetables, simulating the natural cool environment of a garden. The moisture preserves the lettuce's inherent crispness while preventing the wilting process from happening too quickly. The paper towel acts as a two-way humidity control system. To do this, after thoroughly washing and drying the lettuce completely, we wrap it in a slightly damp paper towel. Then, place the entire bundle into a sealable bag and store it in the refrigerator. It is important that we check the paper towel occasionally to ensure it maintains the necessary moisture. This simple method not only extends the shelf life of the lettuce, but also helps us avoid unnecessary waste. The damp paper towel acts like a natural protective layer, keeping the lettuce fresh as if it had just been picked. Keep bananas fresh longer with plastic wrap. Bananas are a fruit that ripens very quickly, and if you buy a large bunch, controlling the ripening speed to avoid waste is essential. Grandma's secret was to use plastic wrap around the banana stems to slow this process naturally. The plastic wrap prevents ethylene gas, the ripening agent, from escaping from the stem, where the ripening process begins. Slowing the release of ethylene gas from the stem is key to keeping bananas fresh longer, as ethylene signals the rest of the fruit to ripen. To execute this trick, as soon as you bring the bananas home, we need to tightly wrap the stem of the bunch with plastic wrap. Every time you take a banana, remember to wrap the remaining stem area again to continue the protection. This small step can delay the ripening of the entire bunch for several days. This trick helps keep bananas firm and full of flavor longer, allowing us to enjoy them for an extended period without worrying about them ripening too fast. Put rice in the salt shaker. People living in high humidity environments often struggle with salt, as it easily clumps and clogs up the shaker, making seasoning difficult. Grandma solved this problem with an ingredient always available in the kitchen: rice. This trick is based on the excellent moisture-absorbing properties of rice. Rice absorbs moisture in the surrounding air, thereby keeping the salt shaker unclogged and preventing the salt from clumping, ensuring the salt remains dry. To do this, we just need to add 1 teaspoon of uncooked rice into the salt shaker. Then, gently shake it, so the rice grains distribute evenly throughout the salt layer. This trick ensures that the salt flows smoothly and is easy to use when seasoning. Rice acts as a natural and effective desiccant, especially useful at outdoor barbecues or on humid days where moisture condensation is common. We need to replace the rice periodically to ensure the best moisture absorption effect. Use cloth bags for mushrooms. Mushrooms are a food highly sensitive to moisture. They are very prone to becoming soggy and spoiling if stored incorrectly, especially when kept in a sealed environment like a plastic bag. Grandma always recommended using cloth bags to store mushrooms instead of regular plastic bags. Mushrooms stay fresh longer in cloth bags, and this has a simple scientific basis. Unlike plastic, cloth material allows air to circulate freely, preventing the condensation of water vapor. This water condensation is the main cause of spoilage and soggy mushrooms. To apply this, we need to place the purchased mushrooms into a clean cloth bag and store them in the refrigerator crisper. It is important that we avoid washing the mushrooms before storing them to minimize added moisture. This method keeps the mushrooms firm and full of flavor for up to 1 week. This simple trick preserves the natural texture and flavor of mushrooms, helping our dishes always retain the necessary crispness. Are you one of our loyal viewers? If you are returning for the second time, please comment, "I'm back," so we can recognize you. Boil corn with sugar to increase sweetness. Sweet corn is an indispensable dish for every family gathering, and to make boiled corn reach perfect sweetness, Grandma used a seemingly opposite secret: boiling corn with sugar instead of salt. Adding sugar to boiling water is a trick that significantly enhances the corn's natural sweetness. This is a subtle intervention in the cooking process. The sugar in the water will slowly seep into each kernel of corn, enhancing its natural sweet flavor without making the corn overly sugary, but just enriching the sweetness it already has. To perform this trick, we need to pour water into a pot, add 1 tablespoon of sugar to it, and bring it to a boil. Once the water is boiling, drop the corn in and cook until it is tender. An important note that Grandma always reminded us of is to avoid adding salt to the corn boiling water, as salt can make the corn kernels tougher and cause them to lose moisture. This trick ensures the corn is delicious, juicy, and deeply sweet, perfect for barbecues or everyday dinners. The contrast between sweet and savory in the boiling water is the secret to the best corn you've ever tasted. Sprinkle salt on citrus fruits before juicing. When a recipe calls for a large amount of fresh lemon or citrus juice, extracting the maximum amount of juice possible is important to ensure flavor. Grandma used a simple trick, a pinch of salt, to extract significantly more juice from citrus fruits. This trick works based on an effective physical chemistry principle. Salt breaks down the fruit cell walls. When the cell walls are broken, the internal juice is released more freely, helping us squeeze more juice without needing excessive force. To perform this, we need to sprinkle a little salt onto the cut surface of the lemon, lime, or orange. Then, let them sit quietly for about 1 minute for the salt to take effect. Finally, we squeeze as usual. With this method, we will notice a distinct difference in yield and ease of squeezing, saving time and effort. This is a small but extremely effective tip when needing to maximize the amount of juice obtained, a lesson in clever ingredient preparation. Use baking soda to tenderize meat. Grandma always disapproved of discarding tough cuts of meat, and she found a simple yet effective tenderizing solution that didn't require complex chemical meat tenderizers, using baking soda. Baking soda is known for its ability to make meat surprisingly tender. This tenderizing capability comes from chemical intervention. Baking soda makes the meat softer by changing its pH level, increasing the alkalinity on the meat surface. This pH change prevents the proteins in the meat from binding too tightly together during cooking, resulting in a softer, more palatable texture. To perform this trick, we need to sprinkle 1 teaspoon of baking soda onto the sliced meat. Then, let the meat sit quietly for about 15 to 20 minutes for the baking soda to take effect. Finally, be sure to rinse the meat thoroughly before starting to cook as desired. This trick helps you make the most of tough cuts of meat, transforming them into delicious and tender meals, a significant change in texture. Store vegetable scraps to make broth. In Grandma's cooking philosophy, completeness and zero waste were essential, and leftover vegetable scraps after prepping were not trash, but a treasure trove for making broth. Vegetable scraps like carrot tops, onion skins, and celery leaves are all full of valuable flavor and nutrients. Using them to make broth adds significant depth and richness to the finished product, creating a rich foundational flavor. To apply this eco-friendly trick, we need to collect all these vegetable scraps into a freezer-safe bag. We continue storing them until we accumulate enough quantity to cook a large pot of broth. When cooking, we simmer them gently in water, along with herbs, for about 1 hour, then strain thoroughly to obtain clear broth. This trick not only helps save money, but also transforms organic waste into a delicious base for soups and stews. That is the cleverness of utilizing available resources, bringing the best flavor to every dish without needing to add any expensive ingredients. Make fish stock from trimmings. Similar to vegetable scraps, when making broth, Grandma never overlooked fish trimmings such as heads and bones, which are equally excellent sources of ingredients. These trimmings are full of deep flavor and especially collagen, ideal for creating a high-quality stock. Utilizing fish heads and bones helps us create a rich flavor foundation for seafood dishes, much deeper than just using regular water. To do this, we need to thoroughly wash the fish trimmings, ensuring all impurities are removed. Then, simmer them gently with water, adding a few vegetables and a little white wine to increase the complexity of the flavor, and cook for about 30 minutes. After cooking, we need to strain the liquid thoroughly. The result is a rich, savory fish stock, perfect for chowders, creamy soups, or rosados. This method reduces waste while creating a deeply flavored ingredient for seafood-inspired dishes. Cook stews long, low, and slow. The biggest secret to a perfect stew with meat that melts in your mouth and deep soaked-in flavor is patience and adhering to the long, low, and slow principle. Grandma always taught that this is an immutable rule for all traditional stews. Using low heat for a long time is the decisive factor. Low heat allows tough meat fibers enough time to break down completely, making the meat soft without becoming dry. At the same time, this slow cooking process gives the flavors the necessary time to blend beautifully together, creating a depth of flavor that cannot be achieved with quick cooking. To apply this, we need to combine the ingredients in a pot, bring them to a boil, then turn the heat very low and let it cook for several hours. Stir gently occasionally to prevent sticking to the bottom of the pot. The result of this patience is a soft, hearty meal bursting with deep, comforting flavor and utterly soothing. Rub lemon on apples to prevent browning. When preparing fruit salads or lunchboxes that need to look aesthetically pleasing, the quick browning of apple slices due to oxidation is always an annoying problem. Grandma solved this issue in an easy and natural way using lemon. Lemon juice is an easy way to keep apples looking bright and appealing. The secret lies in the citric acid contained in lemons. This acid works to slow down the oxidation process, which is the cause of browning when apples are exposed to air. The acid intervention helps maintain the fresh color of the apples. To perform this preservation trick, after slicing the apples, we simply gently rub them with a lemon wedge or drizzle lemon juice over them, then mix them well so the lemon juice covers the entire surface of the apple. This trick works great for party platters, keeping the apples looking fresh longer. Sprinkle salt on watermelon. Watermelon is a wonderful, refreshing fruit for the summer, but sometimes we buy melons that haven't reached ideal sweetness. To solve this, Grandma used a classic, seemingly contrary trick, sprinkling salt on the watermelon. It might sound strange to combine salt with fruit, but a pinch of salt on watermelon helps enhance its natural sweetness. Scientifically, this trick works because the salt contrasts with the fruit sugar. This contrast doesn't make the watermelon salty. Instead, it enhances its flavor profile, highlighting and boosting the sweetness, just like how salt enriches the sweetness of caramel. We just need to gently sprinkle our slices of watermelon with a small pinch of sea salt right before eating. This method works particularly well with melons that are not fully ripe, bringing out their latent sweetness, providing a balanced and enjoyable culinary experience. Salt in coffee. If you ever had the chance to enjoy a cup of coffee at an old roadside diner back in the 1950s, you might remember a surprisingly smooth flavor. The reason for that difference wasn't expensive coffee beans. It just took one tiny thing: salt. Those simmering coffee pots worked hard every morning, but they often faced a big problem. The coffee tasted bitter from over-extraction if it sat too long, making the cup harsh and difficult to drink. To fix this common mistake, the coffee connoisseurs of the time added salt to the grounds before brewing. This simple yet smart trick worked wonders because that tiny bit of salt smooths the bitterness and mellows the flavor, while also making the natural richness of the roasted coffee stand out. It's a cheap, easy kitchen secret that ensures every morning starts with a pleasant, flavorful cup, bringing warmth and the perfect start to a new day. Evaporated milk for mashed potatoes. The real magic of the Depression-era kitchen showed up when cooks needed to stretch the potatoes and turn them into the most luxurious dish possible, meeting the demands of a tight budget. Mashed potatoes are simple, but to achieve that dreamy, pure velvet texture, they need cream. Unfortunately, fresh milk was hard to come by and didn't last long. Instead of settling for dry or bland mashed potatoes, the ultimate solution was found in long-lasting canned milk, evaporated milk. The secret was to gently warm the evaporated milk, then stir it slowly into the potatoes. Evaporated milk, a pantry staple, completely replaced fresh milk, adding extra richness and creaminess. The resulting dish provided true comfort for dinner, delivering creamy, dreamy potatoes that tasted like something far more expensive. How do you make your mashed potatoes? If you get a chance, try out that tip. You'll be surprised by the flavor. Butter-basted burgers in the oven. Back in the 1950s, not every family owned a clean charcoal grill in the backyard. Frying burgers on the stovetop could leave a big, greasy mess in the kitchen, which was a common mistake many homemakers wanted to avoid. So mothers turned to their reliable ovens with the trick of butter-basted burgers in the oven. This tip is incredibly simple yet clever. Form the meat into patties, arrange them on a baking sheet, and place a small pat of butter right on top of each one. As the burgers bake, the butter slowly melts, basting the meat and ensuring the patty stays juicy. This tip not only dramatically improved the flavor, but also optimized kitchen efficiency, freeing the homemaker to do other things while dinner automatically cooked itself. This method provided a delicious meal and kept the kitchen tidier, a wonderful cleverness from the previous generation. Freezing leftovers in coffee cans. Before Ziploc bags or stackable Pyrex containers became common, storing leftovers was always a big challenge, and wasting food was unacceptable. To solve the difficult problem of finding specialized containers, homemakers got creative by repurposing old coffee cans as temporary freezer containers. They scrubbed those Maxwell House and Folgers tins clean and turned them into freezer boxes. Soup, stew, spaghetti sauce, or even casseroles were poured into the cans. Once the food was completely frozen, it could be slid out of the can in a neat cylinder ready to be reheated. This trick was practical, cheap, and especially space-saving in those old, tiny freezers. This is a prime example of recycling, using old items to solve new problems, demonstrating the resourcefulness and waste-not mentality of mothers back then. Storing lettuce with paper towels. Iceberg lettuce was a dinner staple in the 50s, but keeping it fresh was a big challenge before modern prepackaged salads existed. The biggest mistake was letting the lettuce get waterlogged and slimy, ruining everything. To solve this frustrating problem, they used the tip of storing lettuce with paper towels. Homemakers would wash the leaves, wrap them in a slightly damp paper towel, and tuck the package into the refrigerator. The paper towel worked by absorbing excess moisture while retaining just enough to prevent the leaves from wilting. This trick kept the lettuce crispy for days and was passed down from house to house like a family secret. Wax paper for easy pan release. Getting a pie or cake out of the pan or mold without disaster was always a maneuver requiring meticulousness. Torn cake edges, stuck corners were a baker's heartache. The secret revealed was using wax paper to line the cake pan. Home bakers would cut the wax paper to fit the bottom of the pan and lay it flat before pouring in the batter. When the cake was baked, the wax paper ensured it popped right out, smooth as silk, with no torn edges. This tip was the secret to the cleanest cake release, especially in years when every slice had to count and there was no room for error. The ice trick for perfect deviled eggs. Deviled eggs were a staple at every family gathering or card party lunch in the 1950s. However, peeling hard-boiled eggs was often a nightmare because the shells stuck fast, tearing the whites and ruining the dish's neat appearance. The mistake was missing the step of sudden cooling to create contraction. The solution passed down was using the ice trick after boiling. Right after taking the eggs out, mothers would plunge them into a bowl of ice-cold water. This sudden temperature change caused the egg to shrink slightly inside the shell, making peeling much easier. You would hear a satisfying snap as the shell slid off in neat pieces without tearing the whites. It was a small step that made a huge difference, saving time and ensuring the dish was presented beautifully. Scalding milk for preservation. In the 1930s, when refrigeration was still a luxury or unreliable, people needed to make milk last a little longer. The common mistake was fresh milk quickly turning sour in warm conditions. To deal with this challenge, the solution adopted was scalding the milk. Heating the milk to a slight simmer and then letting it cool was a way to extend its shelf life by a few days. Not only that, but scalded milk became smoother and gentler on the stomach, helping to reduce digestive issues. This trick made a big difference when working with tight rations, showing strategic and careful thinking. Grating cold butter for biscuits. Before food processors and specialized pastry cutters existed, people had to get creative when making flaky biscuits. The mistake was the difficulty of keeping the butter cold and distributing it evenly into the dough, which is essential for perfect flakiness. The secret was to grate cold butter directly into the biscuit mixture. Take a chilled stick of butter, run it across a box grater, and use your hands to fold those small curls into the dough. This method kept the butter cold and distributed it evenly, resulting in soft, flaky, puffed-up biscuits. This is one of the best tips from the Depression era. Just smart cooking without fancy tools. Crushed crackers in meatloaf. During hard economic times when meatloaf was less about comfort and more about survival, creativity was needed to stretch the meat. The mistake was needing a breadcrumb substitute that was both cheap and helped stretch the meal while ensuring flavor. The solution was using crushed soda crackers. They were used in place of breadcrumbs. These crackers were not only cheaper, but they also gave the meatloaf a lighter texture and helped bind everything beautifully because they absorbed the meat juices like a sponge. This tip made the meatloaf last a little longer and made each slice feel more filling. A clever financial and culinary ingenuity. If you find this content helpful and want to continue exploring wonderful tips from the past, take a second to hit the like and subscribe buttons so you don't miss our next nostalgic trips. Heating cast iron with lard for cornbread. If you've ever had your grandmother's cornbread, you remember its perfectly crisp crust, and that involved cast iron skillets. The common mistake was failing to create that perfect crispy crust for cornbread, leaving it soft and mushy. The secret was to heat the cast iron skillet with lard before pouring in the batter. A cast iron skillet was preheated with lard. The lard would sizzle the instant the batter hit the pan, immediately forming a golden crispy crust, giving way to a soft, hot center. This is the golden rule in the Southern kitchen, the difference between a good dinner and a legendary one, delivering rich flavor. Freezing cookie dough in ice cube trays. The real magic arrived when it was dessert time, especially in cramped kitchens with limited equipment. A common mistake was the difficulty of prepping cookie dough ahead of time or controlling portions, often leading to baking and eating the whole batch of cookies in one sitting. The genius solution invented was to freeze cookie dough in ice cube trays. Scoop the dough, press it into the ice cube tray, and freeze those perfect portions. They were ready to pull out and bake instantly when a sudden craving hit. This tip also helped control eating and was meal prep before meal prep had a name. It was an absolutely brilliant move, demonstrating smart food management. Ice cube trays for storing leftover broth. Every chicken dinner in the 1950s ended with the bones being simmered into broth, a philosophy that nothing should go to waste. The problem was the difficulty of storing liquid broth due to a lack of freezer space and large containers. The solution was using ice cube trays. The cooled broth was poured into aluminum ice cube trays. Once frozen, the cubes were popped out and stored in bags or jars, allowing you to take out small cubes one at a time. This meant you didn't have to thaw a whole quart of broth just to flavor a casserole. This was a clever tool for the frugal homemaker, a way to stretch every last drop of flavor and optimize precious freezer space. Newspaper to absorb grease and deodorize. Before paper towels became cheap and plentiful, yesterday's newspaper did double duty in the kitchen. The common mistake was needing a cheap material to absorb grease and deodorize without wasting other materials. The solution lay in using newspaper. Newspaper was used to blot fried chicken and absorb grease from countertops. The particularly clever trick was using crumpled newspaper to deodorize, stuffing it into shoes or lining refrigerator shelves. Although the ink might smudge, back then it was simply practical and effective. This tip demonstrated the waste not mentality of homemakers who grew up during the Great Depression. Potato water for gravy. Boiling potatoes for dinner was a daily routine, and thrifty cooks knew that cloudy cooking water should never be wasted. The big mistake was pouring potato water down the drain, wasting a valuable, starchy ingredient. The secret was saving the potato water. Saving a cup or two of the cooking water was enough. It's full of starch, perfect for thickening gravy, soups, and dipping sauces. Some even believed it helped yeast breads rise fluffier when used instead of regular water. This tip is proof that in the 1950s, every scrap and drop had a second life in use. Toasting flour for gravy. Most people think gravy is just plain flour, fat, and liquid. However, old Southern cooks knew how to make it something special by fixing the mistake of a standard roux, which didn't create the necessary deep, nutty flavor and richness. To make the perfect gravy, the trick was to toast the flour beforehand. Put the flour in a dry skillet and stir constantly until it turns golden brown, smelling almost like roasted nuts. That deep, nutty flavor is completely different from a standard roux, creating a Southern kitchen staple. The aroma coming from that pot was truly nothing short of magic, making the gravy so much richer and tastier. Bacon, grease as kitchen gold. That liquid gold in the kitchen that everyone kept in a tin can right by the stove was not trash. It was precious treasure. Throwing away bacon grease was an unacceptable waste, especially in frugal households. The secret was storing and reusing bacon grease. The grease was saved after every frying session, strained of bits, and allowed to solidify until the next use. Bacon grease was free, full of flavor, and kept food interesting when ingredients were scarce. It was used to flavor everything from green beans to cornbread. Bacon grease was considered liquid gold in mid-century kitchens, embodying the spirit of making the most of what you have. Wax paper for lunchboxes. Wax paper was a quiet little hero, especially important during the golden age of the packed lunch. The common mistake was using plastic wrap, which could make sandwiches soggy and lettuce soft due to condensation buildup. To keep lunch perfect, the simple solution was to wrap sandwiches in wax paper. Wax paper allowed the sandwich to breathe just enough, keeping the bread from getting soggy and the lettuce crisp. This was a great way to keep lunch perfectly crisp, cool, and fresh. This small addition made a huge difference, ensuring the quality of meals for children and laborers. Vinegar and ice water for pie crust. What truly separated seasoned bakers was how they handled pie dough, especially on a hot day when the kitchen lacked air conditioning. The most common mistake was the dough easily forming too much gluten, making the crust tough and less flaky, losing that signature delicate buttery texture. The secret passed down was adding a touch of vinegar and using ice water. The vinegar was added to the dough to help prevent too much gluten from forming, keeping the dough tender. More importantly, the ice-cold water kept the fat cold, which is essential for that buttery, flaky, thin texture. This tip became the gold standard for anyone pursuing the perfect crust. The combination of vinegar and cold water made a huge difference, turning every slice into a little piece of heaven, demonstrating the baker's skill. Tomato juice to tenderize meat. In tough economic times, seasoning meat was an area where cooks of yesteryear learned to get creative with something simple that was readily available in the kitchen: tomato juice. When families had to buy tough, cheap cuts of meat instead of premium steaks, they needed a way to make that meat more tender. Cooks discovered that the natural acidity in tomato juice could break down the muscle fibers in tougher meats. The tomato juice acted as a gentle, natural marinade that helped tenderize the meat. This tip was not only clever and effective, transforming a tough round steak into something soft and flavorful. It was an excellent economic solution, giving a thrifty meal a bit of refinement and comfort. Do you have any other tips for tenderizing meat? If you also use tomato juice, hit HYPE. I think many people might not know about it, just like you. Mayonnaise in cake. During wartime or rationing, when pantry staples like eggs and oil were scarce, home bakers came up with a surprise. The mistake of that era was the scarcity of materials, but the need for moist, delicious cakes still existed. The clever solution was found in adding mayonnaise in cake. Mayonnaise works as a perfect substitute because it is essentially a mixture of oil, eggs, and vinegar whipped together. It adds moisture, fat, and richness, helping the cake stay moist and retain its softness for days. This trick was brilliant wartime ingenuity, proving that creativity can overcome any material limits. Cooling angel food cake on a soda bottle. There was another trick that took cake to new heights, literally to keep it airy. The common mistake was angel food cake risking collapsing into a sad sponge after baking if not cooled correctly. The ingenious solution was to flip the cake upside down onto a glass soda bottle. Place the neck of the soda bottle into the central tube of the cake pan and let it cool itself. This allows gravity to do the work and keeps the cake tall and airy as it cools. When the cake is cool, it retains that perfect spongy texture, a fantastic result from a simple kitchen tool. Simmering apple peels as air freshener. When people wanted their homes to smell inviting, they didn't buy expensive candles or sprays because candles were a luxury during wartime and air fresheners didn't exist yet. The mistake was the difficulty of making the house smell pleasant without buying commercial products. The solution was using apple peels. Gently simmer apple peels in a pot of water, sometimes adding a cinnamon stick or a bit of clove. This releases a warm, sweet aroma that fills the house. It's easy, economical, and somehow better than anything from a modern spray can, showing sophistication in utilizing everything. Damp towel for rising bread dough. If there was one thing you absolutely had to get right in those days, it was bread, the food that fed the whole family. The big mistake was bread dough drying out or developing a crust too early while resting, preventing the bread from rising well and leaving it dense. The secret was to place a damp towel over the dough while it rests. This trick acted as a homemade proofing chamber, retaining enough moisture and warmth to prevent the dough from drying out or developing a crust too soon. It kept the loaf light, fluffy, and rising like a dream. This is a simple, free, yet extremely effective tip, helping to ensure the quality of the daily bread. Ice bath for vegetables. Homemakers of the 1940s were masters of presentation and food quality, always looking for ways to keep vegetables vibrant and crisp. They wouldn't accept vegetables being overcooked, losing their crispness and natural color, as this reduced the meal's nutritional and aesthetic value. To preserve that fresh-picked crispness, the technique used was blanching vegetables in an ice bath. Immediately, the greens were pulled out of the boiling water and plunged into a bowl of ice-cold water. This sudden temperature change had a clear purpose: to absolutely stop the cooking process. As a result, the vegetables retained their crunch, nutrients, and bright, natural color. This technique preserved the vibrancy of the dish, ensuring the family meal was not only hearty, but also beautiful. wrapping celery in foil. In the refrigerators of yesteryear, there was a small but effective trick for keeping salads crisp and fresh. Celery was the workhorse of the 1950s kitchen, but if stored incorrectly, it quickly went limp or turned slimy. To fix this, the secret passed down was to wrap celery tightly in aluminum foil. Foil has a unique property. It helps retain enough moisture to prevent the celery from wilting, but at the same time, it allows a small amount of gas to escape. This prevents the buildup of condensation that causes sliminess. Celery wrapped in foil would stay crisp for over a week, ready for salad or dips anytime. Making produce last an extra week was a small victory in a homemaker's food management. Drying herbs in paper bags. When autumn arrived and fresh herbs were no longer available, drying them at home became essential to store flavor for the long winter. The common problem was herbs collecting dust or drying unevenly when air dried naturally, reducing the quality of the flavor. The simple yet genius solution was drying herbs in brown lunch paper bags. Homemakers would gather bundles of herbs, tuck them into the paper bags, poke a few small holes for ventilation, and hang them upside down in a dry corner. This trick kept the dust off the herbs and allowed them to dry slowly and evenly. Once fully dry, they were ready to bring a little life and flavor to soups, stews, and roasts all year long. Freezing coffee cubes. If there was a clever and practical person in the house, they knew exactly what to do with that half cup of leftover coffee after breakfast. The biggest mistake when making iced coffee is using ice cubes made from regular water, because as the ice melts, it dilutes the coffee's rich flavor. The solution was to freeze coffee into cubes in ice cube trays. Pour the leftover coffee into the ice cube tray and freeze them. When the coffee ice melts, the drink actually gets stronger because it is being added concentrated coffee, not water. This trick is completely effective, economical, and considered genius, creating iced coffee that is never watered down. A great tip for lovers of strong flavor. Mock whipped cream, evaporated milk. In the days when fresh cream was too expensive or hard to find, creativity reigned supreme in the kitchens. The big difficulty was how to achieve smooth and fluffy whipped cream when fresh cream was scarce. The solution was found in using mock whipped cream made from evaporated milk. The technique required taking a can of evaporated milk, chilling it overnight until ice cold. Then, using a hand mixer, whip it until it expands, adding a little vanilla and sugar to finish. The result was a topping that looked and tasted almost like the real thing, bringing luxury to dessert. This was wartime ingenuity at its best, turning simple material into a premium dish. Vinegar for poached eggs. Poaching eggs sounds like a basic maneuver, but it often became a kitchen challenge as the whites easily dissolved in the water. The common mistake was the whites turning into a ghostly swirl in the water instead of maintaining a beautiful teardrop shape. To control this chaos, people used the vinegar trick. Just adding a teaspoon of white vinegar to the simmering water was enough. The vinegar acts as a gentle barrier, quickly tightening the protein and helping the egg form a beautiful teardrop shape. It kept the egg intact and neat instead of dissolving into a mess. Butter on cheese. In an era when not all refrigerators worked perfectly, people found a simple way to keep cheese, an expensive item, from molding. The common mistake was cheese molding or drying out quickly after cutting due to exposure to air. The secret was to coat the cheese with butter. After cutting into a block of cheese, homemakers would cover the exposed surface with a thin layer of softened butter. This layer of butter formed a protective seal, locking out air and moisture, preventing mold growth and cracking. This trick extended the cheese's shelf life by a few days or even weeks. Butter became a widely effective tip, a clever solution for food preservation. Using string to slice perfect cakes. Not everyone in the 50s had a drawer full of specialized tools, and electric knives were far from common. The mistake was cutting cake with a knife often resulted in crumbs everywhere, creating messy slices, ruining the appearance of the carefully prepared cake. The simple yet effective solution was using a piece of ordinary kitchen string. The technique is to hold the string taut and gently pull it through the cake. This creates clean, even slices that look completely professional. especially useful for delicate sponge cakes or angel food cake. This tip was a clever solution, proving that sometimes the simplest tools work best in the kitchen. Wax paper as the non-stick hero. Long before non-stick pans and rolls of parchment paper lined grocery shelves, wax paper was the silent hero of the kitchen. The big difficulty was cookies sticking easily, cheese sticking together, and refrigerator shelves rusting easily. The versatile solution found was using wax paper. Homemakers spread it out to prevent cookies from sticking or wrapped sandwiches. They placed a piece of wax paper between slices of cheese so they wouldn't stick together and rubbed wax paper on icebox shelves to prevent rust. Wax paper was cheap, versatile, and the true workhorse of the 50s kitchen, a testament to how one simple item can have countless uses. Bread to keep sugar soft. Every pantry had sugar, but in humid kitchens, sugar often hardened into stubborn clumps, making it hard to scoop and difficult for baking. This was a common mistake everyone faced. The solution passed down through generations was to drop a slice of fresh bread into the sugar canister. The bread worked by absorbing excess moisture from the air in the canister, keeping the sugar soft and easy to scoop. Some people even used apple slices as a substitute, which had a similar effect. This tip rarely appeared in cooking magazines, but it was the secret of every kitchen, showing a deep understanding of ingredients. Vinegar to rescue burned pots. Every homemaker had a favorite pot, and sometimes it got scorched after oatmeal or gravy stuck firmly to the bottom. The mistake was using steel wool to scrub, which risked scratching the beloved pot. The solution relied on vinegar. The technique was to pour a little vinegar and water into the pot, simmer it gently, and let the acid loosen the scorched bits. The acid in the vinegar acted as a magical solution, helping the pot shine like new. Vinegar was not just a cooking ingredient, but a cleaning powerhouse, used for dozens of other tasks like shining up coffee pots or deodorizing the sink. Celery and water to restore crispness. Celery was the workhorse of the 1950s kitchen, but soft, rubbery celery wasn't good for salad or dips. The mistake was celery turning soft and losing its crunch in the refrigerator due to dehydration. The solution to revive it was to place the celery upright in cold water. Stand the celery stalks upright in a glass of cold water. This rehydrated the stalks, making them crisp and fresh again. Making produce last an extra week was a small victory in family food management, and a glass of cold water could make celery as crisp as if it were just picked. Cleaning cast iron with salt. Especially in the South, the cast iron skillet was sacred in the kitchen, and no one dared ruin its precious seasoning with soap. The mistake was scrubbing the cast iron with soap, because it was believed to destroy the natural nonstick layer. The secret was to clean the pan with coarse salt. After frying, pour a handful of Morton salt into the hot pan and use a rag or half a potato to scrub. The salt, being highly abrasive, helped scour without stripping the seasoning. This tip was passed down like gospel, showing respect for the pan that fed the family day in and day out. Storing bacon grease in coffee cans. In an era where nothing in the 1950s kitchen went to waste, bacon grease was considered liquid gold, more valuable than cash. The big mistake was throwing away bacon grease, as it was a free and rich source of flavor. The solution was storing bacon grease in coffee cans or old glass jars. Homemakers carefully poured the hot grease through a strainer into the jars and kept them on the stove or in the icebox. That fat flavored everything from green beans to cornbread, keeping food interesting when ingredients were scarce. It was liquid gold and a tradition, because the true flavor of many dishes often started with a spoon of carefully preserved bacon grease. Mason jars as an everyday tool. Long before social media made mason jars trendy, they were an indispensable everyday tool in the 50s kitchen. The mistake was lacking versatile, affordable storage and serving tools. The solution was utilizing mason jars. They were used for countless purposes: canning peaches, storing leftovers, holding dry goods, and serving sweet tea. These jars were durable, affordable, and endlessly reusable, becoming the most reliable multi-purpose tool in the kitchen. If a family had a shelf full of mason jars, they had solved most of their storage and preservation problems. These secrets are more than just recipes. They are lessons in frugality and resourcefulness passed down by the previous generation. They taught us that the simplest tools often work best and that not a single scrap should be wasted. Which tip on this list reminds you most of your grandmother's kitchen? Was it using bread to keep the sugar soft? Share your story in the comments below, then like and subscribe so we can keep these wonderful memories alive together.